Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi met in Andong on Tuesday, where they pledged closer cooperation on energy security, supply chains, and regional stability amid growing uncertainty in the Middle East. Campaigning is officially underway for South Korea's local elections, with rival parties zeroing in on safety, housing, and redevelopment in the battle for Seoul and the capital region. Samsung Electronics narrowly avoided a full-scale strike after labor and management reached a last-minute tentative deal featuring massive stock-based bonuses and a revamped compensation system. President Lee Jae-myung met with Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi on Tuesday in Andong, President Lee's hometown. During their talks, the two leaders agreed to strengthen cooperation on energy security and supply chains in response to growing uncertainty in the Middle East. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min has the details.
The South Korean president himself received his Japanese guest in his hometown of Andong, along with traditional honor guards.
시골 도시까지 오시느라고 너무 고생하셨습니다.
President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi reaffirmed on Tuesday their bilateral partnership in the face of global uncertainties.
취임 후 벌써 네 번째 이렇게 만나게 됩니다. 그야말로 한일 간의 셔틀 외교의 진면목을 보여주는 것이라고 생각합니다.
I believe it's very important that we continue developing good relations between Japan and Korea through the leadership of you, Mr. President, and me to play a pivotal role for a stable Indo-Pacific.
The leaders have agreed to strengthen cooperation on supply chains and energy supply amid instability in the Middle East.
양국 간 LNG 협력을 확대하는 한편 원유 수급 및 비축과 관련한 정보 공유와 소통 채널 또한 심화해 나가기로 하였습니다.
We agreed upon strengthening bilateral energy security, including energy supply and a swap arrangement on crude oil, petroleum products, and LNG.
The two leaders also reaffirmed the importance of the trilateral cooperation with the U.S. President Lee also called for South Korea, Japan, and China to cooperate and seek areas of common interest. On historical issues, they agreed on specific procedures for DNA analysis of the remains excavated from Chosei coal mine in Japan, where Korean forced laborers were killed when the mine flooded in 1942. Also discussed was regional peace and security, including North Korea. After dinner, the leaders watched a Korean traditional firework festival called Julbulnori, combined with a pansori performance. The Blue House says the welcome for Takaichi has been arranged to match the level of a welcome for a state guest, hoping it'll serve as an opportunity for the two leaders to further strengthen their personal bond and trust. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Andong.
Monday marked the 46th anniversary of the May 18th democratization movement, with President Lee Jae-myung in Gwangju City pledging full efforts to ensure proper compensation for victims and to preserve the spirit of the movement. Choi Young-eun reports.
President Lee Jae-myung on Monday attended the 46th commemoration ceremony of the May 18 pro-democratization movement in Gwangju and delivered an address.
민주주의를 위해 기꺼이 자신을 내던졌던 5월 민주 영령들의 고귀한 넋 앞에 머리 숙여 무한한 존경과 깊은 애도의 마음을 표합니다.
The ceremony took place at the former Jeollanam-do Provincial Government Building, which served as a final stronghold of civic resistance during the movement following its restoration. Earlier, President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung also visited the May 18 National Cemetery to pay tribute to the victims of the movement and their bereaved families. The spirit of May 18 was also highlighted when making reference to the events of December 3, 2024.
12월 3일 내라는 아직 끝나지 않은 5월의 질문이었습니다. 저절로 오는 민주주의도 저절로 지켜지는 민주주의도 없습니다.
The government also pledged to continue efforts to document and honor the May 18 democratization movement so that the Gwangju of 1980 can continue to safeguard the nation's future. Also stressed in Yi's speech was the need for bipartisan support to ensure that the spirit of May 18 is reflected in the preamble of the nation's constitution.
정치적 이해관계를 초월한 모든 정치권의 지속적인 국민과의 약속이었던 것만큼 여야의 초당적 협력과 결단을 간곡하게 요청드립니다.
President Yi also pledged to rebuild the former Jeollanam-do provincial government building into a living K-democracy shrine. He further announced plans to establish a government-led system to register and honor those who contributed to the May 18 democratization movement. Amid multiple crises facing South Korea today, from slowing growth and deepening inequality to shifts in the global order and regional depopulation, the South Korean leader voiced hope for his country to move forward, following the values embodied by Gwangju. Later, President Lee also visited the site of the December 29 Jeju air passenger plane disaster at Wuhan International Airport, where he met with families of the victims and instructed the authorities to conduct a thorough investigation. 조영은, 아리랑 뉴스.
Local elections have entered a decisive phase as official campaigning kicks off. With that, the National Election Commission has also stressed strict guidelines amid the intense campaigning period. And for more details, we have our political correspondent An Sung-jin with us in the studio today.
My pleasure as always, Soo-jin.
So Sung-jin, you've prepared 3 different keywords to go over the latest details regarding the campaign. So the first one being official campaigning. So as official campaigning has begun, what are some of the rules that the candidates must follow?
Indeed, Soo-jin, let's first start with that. Political parties kicked off their official election campaigns on May 21st. Election campaigning will continue up until June 2nd, one day before Election Day. Now, during this 13-day campaign period, candidates may deliver public speeches and hold debates between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., though loudspeakers and megaphones will only be permitted until 9 p.m. Election authorities also reiterated strict regulations against election misinformation, especially the creation or distribution of deepfake campaign materials, which have been banned for 90 days before the vote. Spreading false information or defamatory posts about candidates on social media could also result in legal penalties. Now, with the local elections around 2 weeks away, we will continue to see political parties racing to win voters' ballots.
I see. Now let's look at the second keyword you have for us today, which is end of candidate registration. Can you tell us some of the noticeable points about this registration?
Right, so nearly 8,000 candidates registered for this local election and parliamentary by-elections, and among them, more than 500 are expected to secure victory uncontested. Now, according to the National Election Commission, roughly 13% of the electoral districts that only had a single registered candidate. This includes 3 heads of local governments and around 100 constituency-based Metropolitan Council members. This figure marks the second highest number of uncontested victories since local elections were introduced. However, the final figure could still shift if candidates withdraw before Election Day, but the unusually high number of automatic wins has already hinted at regional party dominance ahead of the June 3rd vote. Now, at the same time, the average candidate-to-seat ratio stood at 1.841 to 1, the lowest on record, slightly lower than the 2022 local elections when it was 1.843 to 1.
And the last keyword you have for us today is ballot printing, which also happened earlier this week. So can you tell us more about what this process entails?
Indeed, ballot printing for the local and parliamentary by-elections officially began on May 18th, effectively locking candidate names onto voting papers. This means that the first deadline has passed for rival camps to unify contenders in closely fought districts, since names are already on ballots, which could lead to split votes. For several competing regions, including the parliamentary by-elections for Busan Bukap District and Pyeongtaek-ul, this may signal that some parties will not be forthcoming with a unified candidate. Now, as the ballot printing process began, voters arriving at polling stations will receive up to 8 separate ballots for mayors and provincial governors, education superintendents, heads of local governments such as district chiefs and county governors. And in districts holding parliamentary by-elections, voters will receive one additional ballot. Now, to help avoid confusion, each ballot will be printed in a different color.
All right, so it looks like the next 2 weeks will be very busy for you at the National Assembly. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you, Sujin.
South Korea has released its annual document setting out its policy toward North Korea, highlighting the Lee Jae-myung administration's efforts to seek peaceful coexistence. Oh Soo-young tells us more.
Peaceful relations first, before denuclearization or unification on the Korean peninsula. That's the message running through Seoul's new unification white paper, the first under the Lee Jae-myung administration. Released on Monday, the annual document lays out Seoul's policy for peaceful coexistence with North Korea. It appears to respond to Pyongyang's hostile two-states policy, stressing the need to move towards a, quote, peaceful two-state relations geared towards unification.
Since Yi took office, Seoul has suspended and dismantled loudspeaker broadcasts and halted anti-North radio transmissions and leaflet campaigns. Since then, the North stopped sending trash-filled balloons. At least, compared with before, inter-Korean tensions have eased.
The document cites how President Lee last August pledged to respect the North Korean regime, to not pursue unification that subjugates the North, and to not commit any hostile acts. Alongside exchanges and normalization of relations with the North, denuclearization is still a goal under the END initiative. However, the white paper admits the nuclear issue cannot be resolved quickly.
The previous Yoon Suk-yeol government clearly defined the North as an enemy, and its audacious initiative demanded denuclearization first. The Yi administration too seeks denuclearization, but not as a precondition for dialogue. It first aims to lower tensions and seeks dialogue, peaceful coexistence, and shared development.
Without an elaborate focus on unification, the white paper sets out ways to institutionalize peaceful ties, calling to restore inter-Korean contact channels, resume dialogue, and reduce military tensions. It also proposes a new inter-Korean basic agreement as a more durable framework. But experts say a more elaborate approach is needed to engage Pyongyang, which is still refusing contact with Seoul.
With its nuclear arsenal expanding rapidly, denuclearization looks increasingly unrealistic. The priority should be a nuclear freeze, followed by sanctions relief and steps to normalize the North's ties with the US and Japan. Pyongyang must sense real benefits from cooperation with Seoul if it's to return to talks.
The ministry revealed earlier this month that North Korea revised its constitution to reflect its policy of distinguishing South Korea as a separate hostile state, removing symbolic references to unification. However, Seoul officials have noted that the North hasn't significantly sharpened rhetoric against the South. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
As tensions in the Middle East draw renewed attention to missile defense systems worldwide, South Korea's air defense capabilities are once again in the spotlight. The Air Force invited reporters to witness a live demonstration of its missile interception system. Our defense correspondent Kim Mo-kyung files us a report.
With loud sirens signaling the detection of an enemy ballistic missile launch, personnel from the Missile Defense Command sprint to the Cheonggung-2 launcher. Through swift procedures, the system is brought to full launch readiness within just 10 minutes.
This is the Cheonggung-2 system that responded to Iran's large-scale combined ballistic missile attacks during the Iran war earlier this year. As you can see, each vertical launcher has 8 interceptor missiles.
With the control center pressing the simulated launch button, the virtual ballistic missile on the radar disappears instantly, marking the end of the successful drill. The Cheonggung-2 system is one of the key components of South Korea's multi-layered missile defense network. After recording 29 successful interceptions out of 30 launches during the US-Iran war, the system has attracted attention from many countries in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and South America. Cheonggung-2 is emerging as a viable alternative to the Patriot system, thanks to its lower missile cost, significantly shorter delivery timelines, and flexible engagement capability. It uses cold launch technology in which the missile is first ejected more than 10 meters into the air before the rocket ignites and then turns toward its target in flight. This enables the launcher to engage targets without rotating while minimizing the flame and blast effects on the ground and nearby equipment.
Our Cheongung 2 demonstrates outstanding performance and is drawing strong international interest in exports. We conduct realistic daily training to defend South Korea against North Korea's increasingly advanced nuclear and missile threats.
Already serving as the core asset of South Korea's air and missile defense network, the system is now gaining momentum in the global defense market. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Sacheon.
Just 90 minutes before a planned strike on Thursday, Samsung Electronics and its labor union struck a last-minute deal on wages and incentives. The agreement introduced a lucrative new bonus system, especially for workers in the company's semiconductor division. Our business correspondent Park Jun-an reports.
Just 90 minutes before the planned full strike, Samsung Electronics labor union and management on Wednesday at 10:30 p.m. reached a tentative agreement. It would mean a major shift in how Samsung Electronics compensates its employees, with the labor minister stepping in after talks appeared to break down earlier in the day.
Through this tentative agreement, we were able to make our compensation system, especially the special bonus system, much clearer and more structured.
The planned strike had raised concerns over potential impact on Korea's economy, but with the unions suspending the strike, members will vote on a tentative deal over 6 days starting Friday. The deal will only be finalized if a majority of members participate and approve the agreement, with rejection likely meaning a return to negotiations.
We apologize to the public for concerns caused by the internal dispute and sincerely thank the government and officials who helped mediate the talks.
Under the new deal, the company will maintain its existing excess profit incentive system while introducing a special management bonus specifically for the Device Solutions, or DS division. This new bonus pool will be funded with 10.5% of agreed business performance earnings with no ceiling on payouts. Out of this pool, 40% will be shared equally across all employees in the DS division. The remaining 60% will be distributed based on the performance of individual business units. Assuming Samsung hits its operating profit forecast of around 300 trillion Korean won, or about $200 billion this year, the special bonus pool for the DS division alone would reach about 31.5 trillion won. This means every employee in the division, if the bonus payout criteria are based on operating profits, secures a base payout of roughly 160 million won, or around $100,000, regardless of their specific unit's performance. For employees in high-performing units like memory, the total payout including existing incentives could reach up to 600 million won, or roughly $400,000. These payouts will be made entirely in after-tax company stock. 1/3 of the shares can be sold immediately, but the rest will be restricted from sale for up to 2 years. Beyond the bonuses, the two sides agreed on a 6.2% average wage increase. They also expanded welfare benefits, including a new company housing loan system and increased bonuses for childbirth, offering up to 5 million won for a third child. The compensation plan is set to remain in place for the next 10 years, provided the company meets its operating profit targets. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
Nearly 100 overseas Korean adoptees gathered in Seoul this week for the 2026 Overseas Korean Adoptees Gathering. The 5-day program is designed to help participants reconnect with their roots and strengthen their understanding of Korean culture and identity. Our Chung Hye-rim was there.
95 different stories from 14 different countries gathered in Seoul on Monday, the opening ceremony of the Overseas Korean Adoptees Gathering hosted by OKA marked the beginning of a powerful collective homecoming.
I do not speak Korean. I do not understand all the rules and customs of the culture, but I do bibimbap every chance I get. Only later did I circle back to questions of identity and origin. What I can tell you from my own experience is this: my Korean story has just begun.
For organization leaders who have dedicated their lives to supporting this community, this return represents a monumental chapter.
you will still have a need to find something that is beyond what your adoptee family can give you, because normally you will not look the same. You will find it very common to have the same kind of questions and have the same kind of doubts. So I think going back for us is a way to deal with that, and we support each other while we are here.
That ongoing journey moved straight into the heart of traditional Korean culture today. Participants gathered at Namsangol Hanok Village to experience a tea ceremony and an etiquette classroom, taking their first steps towards practicing customs they had never known before. For participants like Matthias from Sweden, it's also an exploration of a modern, fast-paced city.
So I've just been walking around, feeling the vibe of the city, and just enjoying my time here, really. There's not really much to do back home if you're trying to go out at 11, 12 p.m., which is completely different from Seoul. So it's been really fun, and it's very different. It's still just a good chance for me to explore more and learn more about where I'm from.
Another way participants connect with their roots is through food. Separated from their birth countries from a very young age, some are even trying traditional 시장 food, such as 빈대떡, for the first time.
Whether they're searching for profound, lifelong answers to their past or simply soaking in the energy of Seoul, this gathering proves that coming home has no single predefined tract. Through this event, adoptees embraced their own stories in different ways. 정혜림, Arirang News.
As the 79th Cannes Film Festival gets underway, Korean films and filmmakers are drawing growing attention on one of the world's most prestigious cinematic stages. Cho Young-eun files this report.
As a mysterious beast transforms an isolated village into a living nightmare, a desperate fight for survival erupts into catastrophic levels of chaos, captivating viewers with the overwhelming suspense. One of the most highly anticipated films at the 79 Cannes Film Festival, the Korean film Hope is competing for the festival's highest honor, the Palme d'Or. Returning to Cannes for the first time in a decade, director Na Hong-jin has once again captured global attention with a work many are describing as an entirely new cinematic genre.
It started with thinking about how I could approach a crime story, and then how to make it feel different from my previous work. As I kept turning it over in my mind, the story somehow ended up in outer space.
Following its world premiere on Sunday, expectations are rising for the film's success at the closing ceremony this weekend.
Of course, the actors also did a great job of performing those moments in a way that would allow the audience to take them as witty and humorous. But I'm still curious to see how the audience will take it.
At Cannes this year, Korean film director Park Chan-wook also drew attention, serving as a jury member while receiving France's highest cultural honor. Reflecting on the growing global influence of Korean cinema, Park noted that the international film industry itself has become more open to diverse voices.
Korea is no longer considered a peripheral country in cinema compared to 20 years ago. I wouldn't necessarily say Korean films themselves suddenly entered at the center. Rather, I believe the global film industry has become more open to embracing a wider diversity of films.
Meanwhile, the team of Kunche also made headlines following the film's world premiere in the midnight screenings, a non-competition section at the festival. Director Yeon Sang-ho once again placed Korean cinema at the center of the global film scene with its new zombie thriller. Following their appearance at Cannes, the team spoke to the press in Seoul ahead of the film's official release in Korea, where actors including Chun Ji-yeon reflected on celebrating their first official invitation to the festival with a Korean film.
Introducing our film, there was such a meaningful and grateful experience. But at the same time, I felt like I came back with even more energy. As an actor, it gave me great courage and strength in presenting Gunchae.
As Korean filmmakers and actors continue to leave a strong impression on the international stage, their growing influence highlights not only the originality of Korean cinema, but also Korea's expanding cultural presence in the global film industry. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
A historic clash between women's soccer clubs from the two Koreas took place on South Korean soil as part of AFC Women's Champions League. The North Korean side ultimately came out on top. Park Gun-woo reports.
Under the relentless rain, Suwon FC women opened the scoring with a goal by Haruhi Suzuki at the beginning of the second half. But the momentum didn't last long as Daegoyang Women's FC's Choi Gu-mok struck back with the equalizer before Kim Kyung-young netted the winning goal. Suwon captain Ji So-yeon then had a golden chance from the penalty spot, but her shot failed to find the net. The match ended in a 2-1 loss for Suwon. After the final whistle, Suwon's coach couldn't hide his disappointment and apologized to fans for the result.
It was a disappointing match, but the players did their best. We really needed a win so more people would become interested in women's football. It was our first time playing in front of such a large crowd and with so many reporters, which makes the loss even more unfortunate.
While admitting it had been a difficult match, Daegoyang said the team would prepare for an even better performance in the final later this week.
Our players showed great mental strength despite difficult conditions, the heavy rain, and playing at the opponent's stadium. Our team is still young and lacks experience, but I hope this match will help us take another step forward. We'll keep training hard for the final.
The North Korean Central News Agency reported Wednesday's victory after remaining silent about the tournament for more than 50 days. With the match being the first in South Korea to take place between club sides from the two Koreas, thousands of people gathered to watch the game in person despite the heavy rain.
Recently, there hasn't been much exchange, so I hope sports events like this can lead to more interaction.
Efforts toward inter-Korean unity had been recently stalled. I hope the match can serve as a refreshing turning point towards reunification.
In the other semifinal on Wednesday, Tokyo Verde Belleza defeated Melbourne City FC 3-1. Daegoyang will now face Tokyo in the final on Saturday at 2 p.m., also in Suwon. The tournament champions will receive $1 million in prize money, while the runners-up will take $500,000. After the historic match between teams from the two Koreas, attention now heads to whether Daegoyang Women's FC will be able to defeat Tokyo Verde Belleza and be crowned champions of Asia. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.